In this lesson, I'll show you how to set up and solve quadratic word problems. This is part 2. The first of the two questions reads, a person purchased some bags of insulation for $1,000. If she had purchased 5 more bags for the same sum, they would have cost 12 cents less per bag. How many did she buy? What we have to do here is create two equations. The first equation will model what will happen originally, and the second equation will model what will happen after she purchases 5 more bags. We're told that she spends $1,000. But we're not told the cost per bag, nor are we told how many bags she bought. So we're going to write down N for the number of bags purchased. And R will represent the rate. Of course, the rate in this case will be dollars per bag. So we'll say that she spent $1,000. We don't know by how many, and that will give us our rate. The rate, of course, will have the units dollars per bag. So this is what she did originally. And then we're told that had she purchased 5 more bags for the same sum, they would have cost 12 cents less per bag. This means that our rate would have been 12 cents less, and since we're dealing with dollars, we need to make sure that this is in dollars. So R minus 0.12 is equal to still 1,000, and this time it's 5 more bags, so we'll write down N plus 5. Now that we have a before and after equation, we can solve for what we're looking for. We're looking for the amount of bags. How many did she buy? We're looking for N. So we need to substitute one equation into another. Notice that we have R is equal to 1,000 over N. I can substitute this into R. Let's go ahead and do that. This gives us 1,000 over N minus 0.12 is equal to 1,000 over N plus 5. Now, not only is this question difficult to set up, it's also not easy to solve. The way you go about solving for N here requires to find the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator in all 3 terms is all the denominators multiplied together. So we have N times a 1 times N plus 5. Therefore, our common denominator here is N times N plus 5, and what I'll do with this is multiply each of these terms by that. And what this will do is eliminate the fractions. For example, if I multiply N plus 5 to this term, I end up with 1,000 bracket N plus 5. Multiplying this to negative 0.12 gives me negative 0.12 bracket N plus 5. And finally, multiplying this to this term gives me 1,000 N. I can go ahead and collect like terms after I expand. I'll expand this part first and then expand that one next. I have 1,000 N plus 5,000 minus, now I'll do this part, I have N times N plus 5. That gives me N squared plus 5N, which then gets multiplied to 0.12. Multiplying 0.12 to N gives me 0.12 N squared, and multiplying 0.12 to 5N gives me negative 0.60 N. And that's equal to 1,000 N. If I bring this 1,000 N over to the left side, this will cancel out with this, and we're left with the quadratic of negative 0.12 N squared minus 0.60 N plus 5,000 is equal to 0. At this point, you'd use your quadratic formula to figure out what N is, but I'll take a shortcut and use my calculator. I'll substitute the values of A, B, and C into A, B, and C. So I get negative 0.12 as my A term coefficient, negative 0.60, and 5,000. You should end up with 2 solutions. My first solution is 201.6, and my other solution is negative 206.6, which of course we can discard and not use. So I'll put an X through this and say that she purchased 201 bags. That's the answer to question 1. Let's move on to question 2. In question number 2, we're asked, the product of two consecutive even numbers is 5,624. What are the numbers? Let's start by saying that x is our first even number, and our next number is y. It's also even. And together, when multiplied, gives us 5,624. Now, the fact that they're even is important because if that's the case, we can say that y is equal to x plus 2. So if our first number in the sequence is x and it's even, the next number has to be even as well, and the only way to ensure that is if you add plus 2 to what x was. This makes the equation quite easy. We have x bracket x plus 2. We multiply what you see on your left. That's x squared plus 2x is equal to 5,624. You bring the constant over to the left side, ensuring that the equation is equal to 0, making us ready to solve it. You can use the quadratic formula. I'll use my calculator. I'll substitute 1 as my leading coefficient, 2, and negative 5,624. I end up with 74 and negative 76. If I choose 74, the next number in line will be 74, then 76. If I choose negative 76, my next number will be negative 74, both of which, when you multiply together, will give you positive 5,624. And there you have it. 2 more examples on how to set up and solve quadratic word problems.